Alright, this one's weird. On Monday, the president announced a ceasefire. Oil futures crashed 16%. Everyone went home happy, but at that exact same moment, on the exact same trading floors, the price of a real barrel of oil hit an all-time record high. Not since the 70s, ever. Let me explain.
April 7th, 2026, 4:30 p.m. London time. In a 30-minute trading window run by a single company in the city of London, the price of real oil hits $144.42 a barrel. It is the highest price ever recorded, not since the 70s, ever. At the exact same moment, on the exact same trading floors, the futures contract for the exact same oil is trading at $94. One grade of crude, two prices, $37 apart. A president has just declared peace. The futures market believes him. The physical market does not. This is what peace looked like on cable news. Hours earlier, the White House had announced a ceasefire with Iran. After 5 weeks of airstrikes, missile exchanges, and a strait nobody could cross, Washington said it was over. The market agreed, almost. Front-month oil crashed 16% in 90 minutes. The Dow rallied, the Fed exhaled. By the evening news, the story had been written. The war was over, oil was coming down, inflation would ease, summer was saved. There was just one problem. If the war was really over, someone forgot to tell the tankers. 3 days after the ceasefire, 600 ships were still sitting in the Persian Gulf. 325 of them were tankers, fully loaded, going nowhere. Iran, which had promised to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, was still charging $1 million per vessel just to cross. War risk insurance, which had been running at under $300,000 per voyage before the war, was now quoting $10 to $14 million per trip. A 40-fold increase. The futures market had decided the war was over, but the people who actually insure ships on actual oceans had not. To understand why, you have to understand something most news anchors don't. There is no such thing as the oil price. There are two of them. The first is paper oil, a futures contract, a bet, traded millions of times a day. It answers one question: what do traders think will happen? The second is physical oil, an actual barrel, actual crude, actual ship, actual port. It answers a different question: what does a barrel of oil cost right now? Most of the time, these two numbers are nearly identical, until they aren't. Every weekday afternoon at 4:30 London time, a 30-minute window opens. It is run by a single company, S&P Global Platts. Inside that window, a small group of traders buy and sell the cheapest available cargoes of 5 specific grades of North Sea crude: Brent, Forties, Oseberg, Ekofisk, Troll. Whichever one is cheapest during those 30 minutes sets a number called Dated Brent, and Dated Brent becomes the reference price for roughly 1/3 of the world's oil. On April 7th, inside that 30-minute window, the cheapest cargo in the world was $144.42. Here is why. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. Through it every day passes about 20 million barrels of oil. 1 out of every 5 barrels the world burns. For 5 weeks, nothing moved through it. 9.1 million barrels a day of crude production is now shut in across Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain. Iraqi exports are down 82%. Kuwaiti exports down 75%. The International Energy Agency called this the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Then it emptied a record 400 million barrels from strategic reserves trying to plug the hole. More oil than has ever been released from any reserve in history. It wasn't enough. There was one workaround. Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline, called the Petroline, runs 1,500 kilometers across the peninsula from the oil fields in the east to the Red Sea in the west. It carries up to 7 million barrels a day. It bypasses Hormuz entirely. For decades, it has been the Gulf's emergency valve. Hours after Trump announced the ceasefire, an Iranian drone hit one of its pumping stations. 700,000 barrels a day, offline. The last workaround, broken. This is not the move of a country that thinks the war is over. The futures traders in Chicago and London watched the headlines. They watched the president. They bought the ceasefire. The cargo buyers in Rotterdam and Singapore watched the ships. They watched the insurance quotes. They watched the Platts window. They bought oil for real. Paper Brent, $94. Dated Brent, $132. A $37 spread between the same grade of oil. One you can speculate on. One you can actually put in a ship. That gap has never existed before. Not once in the history of the benchmark. Physical and paper always converge in the end. They have to. A futures contract eventually settles against a real barrel. The only question is which side moves, and in a real disruption, physical always wins. Here's where it hits you. Crude price moves reach the pump in about 2 weeks. Most of a spike passes through within a month. Economists call it rockets and feathers. Prices rise like rockets and fall like feathers. The gasoline in your tank today was refined from crude bought in late March, before the ceasefire, before the pipeline strike, before the physical market broke. You are paying $4.17 a gallon today. A year ago, it was $3.25. That's 92 cents a gallon already added, and the new disruption hasn't arrived yet. By the end of April, if Dated Brent is right, the national average will cross $4.30 a gallon. The Fed will see it in its next inflation print. Powell's replacement will see it in his first week on the job. And cable news will look up, confused, and wonder how the ceasefire didn't fix anything. This is the thing the news gets wrong about markets. When the paper market and the physical market disagree, it is not the physical market that is lying. The paper market is a bet on what will happen. The physical market is what is already happening. One of them you can argue with. The other one is already in your tank.